Well, good evening, ladies. Good morning, whatever it is for you right now. If you're here, I am so excited for you. That means you have children that you are bringing up into this world and you want to do it to the best of your ability. And you are here because you want to learn about how other sisters in this walk are homeschooling their children, are bringing up these kids, and I am just so excited to share what I've learned with you. My name is Christal, and I have raised 5 children, and I've homeschooled all 5 of them all the way through, and they're adults now. And now I'm working on homeschooling my grandbabies. It's a different world now than it used to be, so homeschooling is not quite the same. I do it via Zoom, and it is fun and exciting, and it's challenging and it's different. But we're here now to talk to each other about how to homeschool our children, how we can actually bring it into practice, and how we can do it. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my journey. When I started out, I did not want to homeschool. Did not feel like I was capable. I did not have the mentality. I did not know how to teach. I did not feel like I had an education where I could actually have the intellect to be able to do it. But my daughter came to me. I had lost custody of her, and I got custody back when she was about 9 years old, and she was being held back for another year. So she was supposed to be going into the 3rd grade, and they were putting her back into the 1st grade. And everywhere I took her, they told me, you need to homeschool her. You need to homeschool her. And I was like, I can't. I don't know how. I don't even know what that means. That's a new word to me. So I brought her in, and I picked the first curriculum my neighbor or my friend told me about, and I ran with it. And it didn't work. But that's okay. And for the next 20 years, I think that I spent most of my time finding out everything that did not work. But this is what I learned in the process, that I have to find what works for me and for my family. So I want to tell you a little bit about my curriculum, and it's called Eclectic. It's called Figure It Out As You Go, and that's okay. But I learned a couple of things along the way that I wanted to share with you, which was my processing. And so I've tried to put it on paper. I've tried to put it out there where get it out of my head and put it on paper where maybe I can share it with you a little bit. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to show you what I've done. Okay, so I built this graph right here. So this is the graph that I kind of had in my head when I would walk through trying to figure out what I was going to do, because every year that I sat down to homeschool, I did something new. I did something new every single year. And I had to figure out, okay, where are we at? So whenever you look at a homeschool curriculum, there are 4 different directions in which you can go. Right here, you can go towards the very directed section. That means that you're going to find a curriculum that has all of the lesson plans laid out for you. It's very directed and guided. It's telling you exactly what you need to do each and every single day. The other side of that is totally freelance. You do whatever you want to do. You build your curriculum as you go. You wing it. You don't have any real guidance, and you just do something every day. Usually on this side, you're going to find the moms who build the curriculums and then end up selling them later on down the line. The other directions that you can go is highly workbook or highly literature. That means that here, when you have highly workbooks, you do a lot of that sitting around the table. You do a lot of that filling out the workbooks. Math is a workbook type curriculum most of the time. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you find highly literature, where you read your way through it. A math program that would be a literature program would be Life of Fred, where you read your way through mathematics. But you have to choose where you want to fall on this particular spectrum. So when you start looking at a curriculum, you have to decide what works for my family. Do we need more workbooks, or do we want to do more reading? Do we want more directed type guidance, or do we want to kind of freelance it? And where are we going to fall in that circle of homeschooling? There's a green circle here, represents your circle of homeschooling, or your circle of your homeschooling community. Now, outside of the homeschooling community, you have those that fall outside of the those that are outside of the scope. One of the versions of schooling that is outside of this particular scope is that I'm talking about today is unschooling. Now, if you're an unschooler out there and it works for you, then you go right on ahead. This is not what we're talking about. Unschoolers usually don't find curriculums. So we're talking about trying to find the curriculum. So if you've never heard of that term, an unschooler is a person who, when the child wakes up that morning, if that child wants to talk about grass, then they're going to go outside and they're going to pull a blade of grass, and they're going to talk about how grass grows, and they're going to count the blades of grass, and they may put grass underneath the microscope, and that will be their science. And then if the child wants to learn about bees, then they're going to go, look at bees, and they're going to get some. So it's very child-centered. The total opposite of that spectrum, which is another outlier, would be a charter school, which EPIC, here in Oklahoma, we have a charter school called EPIC. And EPIC is a school where it's not really a homeschool, it's a school at home. And it is where you have teachers that come into your home via Zoom. It's where you account to those teachers for the pages that are done. You turn in your work to them. They do all the grading. They keep all the records. And all you have to do is put your kid down in front of a video screen, or make sure that their work is done every day. But you're totally not responsible for that child's education. So those are outliers, and those are not what we're talking about here. We're talking about how to pick a curriculum that falls within the scope of you being the homeschool mom responsible for it. Some of those curriculums that I can point out that I have used along the line, whether it worked or not, have been all over the charts. And if you'll notice that you can drop the dot in based on what kind of curriculum it is. The first one that most homeschoolers go to is the Abeka curriculum. Okay, the Abeka curriculum is very traditional. Everybody usually gravitates to it when they're first starting because it's very popular, it's very advertised, it's very marketed, and it is very user-friendly to a certain extent. This is a very directed type curriculum. So when you look at this, but now I don't condone any of these curriculums as far as for your family. I can tell you that what you have to do is you have to find whatever curriculum that you're looking at. Where does it fit on this particular graph? And does that bullet match where you are? Where does that point? Is that point where you are and your family is in the whole journey? So Abeka would be more towards the directed side. It would lean higher towards the workbook side, even though it does have some reading and stuff, but it's pretty balanced between workbook and literature. So it's going to be mid-scale, highly directed. But you can also do the Konos curriculum. The Konos curriculum is very freelance. It is it leans more towards the literature because it's not really workbook based. However, it depends on what you choose to do. So the Konos curriculum is a curriculum where this mom has put together this workbook and she's given you all these ideas, and you get to pick and choose what you're going to do for that day. Okay. And that is very freelance. When it comes to the other scope, you can go towards everything you need to know for your first grader workbook from Sam's Club. And if you get that workbook and it's got everything that you need to know, then you are going to sit down and you're going to work on pages all day. And when you've done 2 pages of math and 2 pages of science and 2 pages of English, you're going to clap your hands and say, okay, I'm done for the day. But you can go to the other end of the spectrum and you can get highlighted literature where you read your way through everything. People who love books like me, I lean towards that particular curriculum. That curriculum might be the Sunlight curriculum, where it has the lesson plans, is very guided and directed. However, it's heavy in literature. It's actually very heavy in literature. So where do you fall on that? Another program that's out there is Easy Peasy. It's a free program online. If you're looking at your finances, you might want to look into Easy Peasy. It is a computer-based program, so it's not going to be a lot of literature. It's going to be, you go online, you download the programs, you work through the programs, you do some workbook pages that she gives you to print out, and you can do your research on that. But Easy Peasy is a very leaning more towards the freelance. I have it kind of directed because it depends on how you use it. It could be directed or freelance, but I leaned it more towards directed because it does have lesson plans, but it's free, but it's computer based, just like the Alpha Omega is highly computer based and lesson plan oriented. So you have to look at your spectrum here and you have to decide where you want to go with that. Now you're sitting here looking and you're saying, I have no earthly idea what programs, what type of curriculums they even have out there. You don't even know where to begin to look. And I'm going to tell you, go ask Kathy Duffy. Kathy Duffy is the curriculum guru. She's done all the reviews on every curriculum out there that you could possibly want to consider. She writes books every year about her top 100 or 102 picks. She breaks down every curriculum as far as what it is, how it works financially, and then she racks and stacks them and she picks her top 102. So you go in there and you ask Kathy Duffy, or you look at Kathy Duffy. She doesn't promote any particular curriculum, but she gives you an unbiased opinion or review on what the curriculums are and how they look. And then she puts it in her book. Now, you go in there and you look at these curriculums that she's reviewed and you decide, okay, where does that bullet point fall on this scope? And where am I on this particular scope? I'm going to tell you that for me and my family, when it was all said and done, we fell about right here. We leaned very much towards the literature. We used the Sunlight curriculum, but I think looking back now, I probably would have preferred to use My Father's World, because it was a little bit less literature, not quite so heavy, very easy to incorporate a large number of children at the time. And it was directed enough for me, but still gave me the workbooks that I needed, because I'm a workbooks type person. And going forward from here, that's what I will probably use with my grandchildren. But the whole point of it is that you have to decide where you fall in this realm. You know, are you a person right now, and seasons change, are you a person that's going to lean more towards workbooks right in the beginning until you get your reading, writing, arithmetic, science, and history and all that taken care of? Or are you a person who's going to lean more towards the literature, because if you can read it, you can learn it? You know, are you a person who needs guidance in the very beginning? Please give me the lesson plans and tell me what I'm supposed to do each and every day, because I'm lost. And then grow into the freelance version of it, because it's okay to change. It's okay to have different spots on this whole scope and sequence here until you figure out what you're doing. I want to encourage each one of you that just know that you don't need to know how to homeschool. It's a lesson that you learn as you go. Each and every day when you get up, you learn more with your children than you do to your children. You learn more from them than you teach them. And it's all about growing our character in this journey. God gave us our children not only so that we could train up the child in the way he should go, but so that they could train up our character. And so our children are there to teach us perseverance. They're there to teach us creativeness. They're there to teach us how to love powerfully when the world doesn't want us to learn how to love. And they're there to teach us that no matter what choices that they make, that we're going to love them through it. And that's how the Father loves us. So when we homeschool our children, these curriculums are nothing more than tools that we use. Tools that we use to make it to our destination at the end of every day, to say that we have successfully loved the way the Father has encouraged us to love. When I first started homeschooling, I didn't know what my focus was. I didn't know my objective. I was in survival mode. But I had a wise sister tell me, you need to make a mission statement. You need to determine what it is that your homeschooling is supposed to do. What is your objective for these children? And I had to pray about it, because my mission statement didn't need to just reflect what I was today, but it needed to have an overall vision. In the Word of God, it says that a people without a vision will perish. So the mission statement created for me a vision. And my mission statement was to train up a generation capable of sharing the love of God in everything that they do, in everything that they say, and in everything that they write. And every day when I would get up and I would train these children, I would realize at the end of the day, did they learn how to share the love of God in some way? Because if they did, then our day was successful. I no longer measured it by how many pages we got done, or by what they scored on a particular test, or what they accomplished in their writing, or what they grasped in their mind. I measured it from that day forward in what seeds were planted in their hearts. Because we cultivate the hearts of children, not the minds of children. We cultivate the hearts of children. And it's out of the abundance of the heart that flow the issues of life. So we are here as parents to train up a child in such a way that the Word of God is written on their heart. And when they go forward and they move forward, that they're able to outflow the love of God from their heart. I have to say, though, that as many times as I heard that verse pounded over my head, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't turn from it. It became a burden to me, because it put such a responsibility on me that I began to not love that particular verse the way I wanted to. So I asked the Lord, while I was doing my mission statement, what is the verse that you want for my family? What is the verse, Lord, that is the go-to verse for my family? And it was Galatians 6:9. He said, be not weary in well-doing, for in due season you will reap if you faint not. And I'm telling each and every one of you moms right now, be not weary in well-doing, for in due season you will reap if you faint not. Pick up your mantle every single day. Say your mission statement. Grab your staff and move forward, because you can do this. But you're not going to do it the way your neighbor does it. And you're not going to do it the way your sister does it. You're going to do it the way the Lord tells you to do it. And you're going to do that by sitting down and listening and saying, okay, Father, on my little sphere, on my little spectrum, where does my bullet lie today? What tool am I going to be using today to train up these children? And what tool is going to make it so that I don't grow weary in doing this? And when you ask the Lord to give you your spot on the homeschool circle, then you will find the curriculum that works for you, and it will be the tool that you use to move forward. Now, I wanted to touch just a little bit more on the long haul of all of this. It's easy when we start talking about starting out, but what about you sisters out there who have children and they're in their high school years and you're like, how do I prepare them for college? How do I get them ready to move out into the world? And I had a friend one time who said, and she did this with all of her children. She said, I'm going to homeschool them till they're in the high school years, and then I'm going to put them in high school and let high school take care of it. And I want to encourage you ladies that the high school years, that's where the money's made. That's where you really, that's where you get down and dirty. And that's when you are really launching that airplane that you've been building all these years. Okay. So I'm going to tell you kind of what I did for my children. When your children get into those high school years, you are the Board of Education. Nobody else is the Board of Education. You are. You are the one that determines what their high school requirements are for when they graduate. If you say that they need 1 English and 1 science to graduate, you're the Board of Education. We wouldn't do that to our children though, because we want them to be successful. So when you get your children to their high school years, you no longer prepare them for college. They're already ready for college. For me, what I did was when my children got into their freshman, sophomore year, you never really know what grade they're in when you're homeschooling. But when they got to their freshman and their sophomore year, I came along and I said, okay, I'm no longer going to homeschool you according to a curriculum. I'm going to go down to the junior college and I'm going to find out what test it takes in order to get you into that school. No, it's not the ACT and it's not the SAT. It's a junior college. They give their own little ASVAB test or their own little test just to see if they know just enough to be able to take an English class or a humanities class or a science class with their particular college. If they can pass that test and they're 16 years old, they can take a college class. So my children passed their entrance exam because I schooled them specifically to pass that test. And when they went into school, instead of taking any high school classes that I deemed that they needed to take, they took all of the classes that they needed in order to acquire an associate's degree. So I no longer had to decide what classes that they needed to take. I went down to the school and said, I need your scope of what it takes in order to walk away with a degree in general studies. And if it was English 1 and 2, English 101 or 102, a science class, a math class, and a history class, then that's what we started working on, 1 or 2 classes at a time. And as they progressed, I would mark it off. So when they would do English 101, that was their sophomore English. When they would do English 102, that was their senior English. And they usually did both of those in the same year. When it was all said and done, I had my children took college classes in lieu of high school classes. Don't think that they can't do it, because They don't have to know the English class before they take the English class. That's the reason they're taking it, because they don't know. You take a class that you don't know so that you can learn it. So my children would take these classes. And also, I want you to understand that English 101 and 102 in college, in a junior college, is equivalent to junior and senior English in most high schools, because they repeat it when they get to college. So they're not learning anything far above than what they would normally learn in their regular traditional high school. It's the same thing with any of your sciences, any of your humanities. Generally, all of them are repetitive from the high school years. So if you forego the high school classes in lieu of the college classes, you're a step ahead. Okay, you're already a step ahead. Now, do you have to do that? If your child doesn't want to go to college, they don't have to. You can still just give them whatever classes you deem necessary. But if your question is, how do I prepare them for college? Your answer is that you already did. You already did. All you have to do is take them down and get them accepted into that college and let them run with it, because they will run the race and they will be successful and they won't grow weary. They'll be excited about it. They really will. My children, as I went down the line, I got better and better at understanding how to homeschool them in the college, in the high school and college years. My third child graduated from high school with associates with 90 college credit hours. So she's right now 6 classes away from her bachelor's degree. That's her choice, because she stopped when I said, okay, that's it. You're on your own now. And I chose to write down everything as a high school transcript and give it to her and say, you're good. You've graduated from college. So therefore, I think high school's a gimme, right? My next child graduated at 17 from a junior college with an associate's degree. My last one graduated from a junior college at the age of 16, because he was able to start at the age of 15, because they let him in, because he passed the test. Let him in, and he graduated with an associate's degree and has now joined the military and has already spent a year in Korea. My children are not smart. They're not smarter than any other child. They're not special. They're not geniuses. And I guarantee you, I do not have a degree that educated these children. I was lucky if I could read on a 7th or 8th grade level when I started homeschooling my children. But I learned with them. I learned phonics when I taught them phonics. I learned science when I taught them science. I learned how to write by using IEW, Institute for Excellence in Writing. Wonderful program for me, wonderful program for them, because it taught me how to write. I hated writing. I'm telling you that you can do this. You can finish the course strong. You've already prepared your children for college if they're in high school and if they're in high school level. Also, do not feel like that you have to teach your children all the answers. We are never to find answers. When we study the Torah, when we open up the Torah and we study each and every week a new Torah portion, we're left with more questions than we ever had answers. And it's not that we know the answers, it's that we know where to go find the answers. We don't teach our children answers. We teach our children curiosity. We teach our children inquisitiveness. We teach our children to go use a thesaurus, to use a dictionary, to use an encyclopedia, to ask a rabbi, to ask a sage, to ask a professor, to go advocate for ourselves, to speak up, to step out. We don't teach our children answers. We teach them how to find the answers. And when we do that, we have equipped these young men and women to go out and say, why do you say that exactly? May I ask why? May I ask why you come to that particular understanding? And when we do that, they're not going to fall for any theological teaching that's thrown out there. They're going to search the word for themselves. They're going to be trained up in the way that they should go, so that when they're old, they won't turn from it. They'll be able to seek out the answers that they need to find. I loved my journey of homeschooling. I loved it with a passion, even though I started out with such resentment. I was able to invest each and every day into my children, and they were able to see my struggles. When our children see our struggles and they see our victories, they want what we have. They want the victories that we have fought to achieve. And sometimes just making it through the day, without biting off a head is a real victory. And that's okay. I encourage each and every one of you, continue your race. Find what fits for you. Find where you are in your circle. And when you get to those high school years, do a real good assessment, because you're going to find they're already prepared.